Hello, I'm Bo, and welcome back to Bo's Books. If you watched my last final FMC TBR, the one for February, you will see that as part of my TBR challenge, what I wanted to do was read the highest rated and lowest rated book on my TBR as like a little vlog challenge. So here it is. What I'm going to do is go into Goodreads because I feel like they have the easiest way of sorting. I tried to do it in Storygraph, but they don't have a way to sort by average rating, which is a really big bummer. So what I'm going to do is go to the Goodreads section where I have all my digital TBR listed, and I'm going to go ahead and sort it by average rating, and I'm going to see what the highest rated book is and the lowest rated book is. Now, I was thinking about it, and I think I want to give a criteria to meet. I want to make sure that the books have at least 1,000 ratings. Is that really high? Maybe 500. At least like 500 ratings each. Because if a book just came out, or if it's really, really indie and only maybe like 10 people, 30 people have reviewed it, a lot of the times that book's gonna have whatever that small group of people have been rating it. So if it's very like niche and only like 10 people have read the book and they all loved it, so they all rated it 5 stars, then you have this book that's average rating is 5 stars, but only 10 people have read it, which compared to, other books, I feel like it's just not fair. Okay, so I've gone into my Goodreads want to read list, and it looks like currently I have 615 books on my digital TBR. Now, I've been adding books like crazy to this list, and I have not filtered it out, so there's probably a bunch of books on here that I'm not even interested in anymore, but I didn't go through and do a digital unhaul, so it's just gonna be what it is. If I run into a book that I really do not want to read as one of the options, I'm just going to delete it and move on because I don't want to punish myself. I want it to actually be a book that I want to read. So let's take a look. Okay, so filtering it to the lowest rated book on my want to read so far right here is Son of Rosemary by Ira Levin. Yikes. Okay, let me see how many people have actually read and rated this book before I commit to this being the choice. This has so many ratings. Okay, this book is gonna be garbage. This has been rated by 5,492 people, and it has an average rating on Goodreads of 2.55. I heard this was bad. Okay, I actually, like, when I had first read Rosemary's Baby and watched the movie last year, and then I found out there was a sequel, I was like, oh shoot, like, let me read the sequel, that's cool, let me continue and see where this goes, that might be interesting, and then everybody told me don't do it, it's garbage. And I guess I just did not remove it from my digital TBR, but I will say I don't mind reading this one because I'm honestly still curious of where they took the story, and I think I'm down to read this. It's also not super long. I think it says it's only 316 pages. This was published in 1997. Oh, interesting. Wait, when did Rosemary's Baby come out? Okay, Ira Levin published Rosemary's Baby in 1967, and then he published Son of Rosemary in 1997. That is a really long time between books. And Rosemary's Baby, the first book in the series, has an average rating of 4.06 with 160,000 ratings on Goodreads. So that's a major flop for the sequel of that series. Ooh, okay, I'm down. Okay, I'm gonna click the average rating one more time to see what the highest rated book on my digital TBR is. So right off the bat, I can already tell you the first 4 books in this list are not going to meet the 500 rating minimum that I have set up here. The first one was written by a friend of mine, and although I know I'm going to rate this 5 stars, it's just not going to have as many ratings. I've already checked all these to confirm, so I'm not just assuming. I did look. So it just doesn't have as many ratings to meet this. The second one was actually the author reached out to me and asked if I would want to read this book. I said yes, so that is on my TBR, but it absolutely does not have enough ratings to meet my criteria. The next one I'm super excited to get my hands on, but right now it's in the ARC phase of things because it is not actually published yet. So the only reviews and ratings that are out there for this book are going to be ARCs, and there's not enough, and I wouldn't be able to read it right now because I don't have an ARC for it. So we'll move on to this one. Then we have Done in the Dark, which I met the author at the LA Book Festival and I bought her book. It sounded super good. I still have yet to read it, but it does not have enough ratings on there to meet this criteria as well. I really thought we were going to end up at The Will of the Many, and I got scared. I was supposed to read that book in December. I was also supposed to read that book for another vlog I'm working on, and I was just like, oh no, this book is haunting me. I need to get to it. But there's a book that's rated higher than it. So by 0.1 of a point difference, The Will of the Many has 4.59 rating, and One Day Everyone Will Have Always Been Against This has 4.6. So I'm gonna go with that, which I'm actually really excited about because I've been wanting to read this book. I've been in a very nonfiction mood lately, so this is gonna be perfect for me. So this book is written by Omar Al-Akkad. Gonna have to check the pronunciation of their name, but the little bit of the summary says, on October 25th, after just 3 weeks of the bombardment of Gaza, Omar Al-Akkad put out a tweet. One day when it's safe, when there's no personal downside to calling a thing what it is, when it's too late to hold anyone accountable, everyone will have always been against this. This tweet was viewed over 10 million times. One Day Everyone Will Have Always Been Against This chronicles the deep fracture which has occurred for Black, Brown, Indigenous Americans, as well as the upcoming generation, many of whom had clung to a thread of faith in Western ideals, in the idea that their countries or the countries of their adoption actually attempted to live up to the values they espouse. I like this part as well. It says, this book is his heartsick breakup letter with the West. It is a breakup we are watching all over the US, on college campuses, on city streets, and the consequences of this rapture will be felt by all of us. His book is for all the people who want something better than what the West has served up. This is the book for our time. I am so hyped to read this right now. Like, what a more perfect book for my mood right now. Okay, I'm actually excited to get to these books. I don't know. I'm trying not to go in with like these preconceived notions of like what to expect from these books, but I mean, how can you not with this kind of setup, right? Like that's the whole thing. But hey, I'm gonna be honest, I'm gonna rate it accordingly. So, you know, if I love this book that everybody hates, then great, good for me. But do I think that's gonna happen? Probably not. Let's see how it goes. I'm sorry. What? Like, what? I'm at about 25%, and maybe this is the reason that people don't like this book. I don't know. I'm excited to go into the reviews and see what everybody's qualms are for this, but it's giving Oedipus. There's definitely a lot of really uncomfortable flirting between Rosemary and her son, and specifically the son to his mother. Not just flirting, but like he full on kissed her. He keeps calling her like the most beautiful woman. He misses her. He wants to be around her. He's talking to her about his sex life, and I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. This is gross. I'm confused. I get that his father is the devil, but this is the way that you had to show that he's evil? Like, you couldn't have picked something else? Like, this is just weird. It's uncomfy. I don't like it. I'm getting through it pretty quick, so I'm gonna just keep going with it to kind of see where this goes. But so far, the story itself is not intriguing at all. I thought it was gonna be interesting because I knew the characters and I was interested in where they were going, but like most of the characters have died off because in the first book, they were already really old, and then so many years have passed for Andy to now become an adult. So a lot of those original older cult characters are not even around anymore anyway, so really it's just Rosemary. I don't know, I'm kind of like listening to it in the background while I'm working because it's not really gripping me, and I didn't really expect it to, being that it was rated pretty low, so I figured the story wasn't going to be that great, but I didn't expect that element. I thought it was just going to be a bad story, but this is, that's something. I finished Son of Rosemary 2 days ago, and I've been kind of marinating over my thoughts, and I've decided that what I'm gonna do is a spoiler-filled review here in this video. So if you don't like spoilers, you're gonna wanna skip ahead because this is gonna be full of spoilers. Basically, I read this bad book, so you don't have to. So if you've read Rosemary's Baby, or if you've even just seen the movie, and you were curious about, wait, there's a sequel? What happens next? Maybe I should read it. Just pump the brakes and listen to this. I mean, unless you really do want to read it yourself, then I mean, by all means, go ahead. But I'm going to tell you right now, the reviews are correct. It's not a good book. But let me tell you why. We start off with Rosemary waking up from a coma that she's been in for 27 years. Now, this is to facilitate a time jump for her baby, Andy, to have grown into a 33-year-old man. Now, this is the same age that Jesus was when he walked the earth, because as you may or may not know, Son of Rosemary is supposed to be about her son becoming the Antichrist. Now, here we go with the suspension of disbelief, right? Because the satanic cult is what kept her in that 27-year coma, and not until the last cult member dies is when the spell breaks and she wakes up. So first off, the thing that sucks is I was so excited to read a book with all these characters that I had seen before, like reuniting with old friends, but you really don't get any of those characters from the first book. It's just Rosemary, because all the old cult members that you remember from book 1, like Roman and Minnie, they're dead. So you only have Rosemary and technically the baby, but like the baby wasn't part of book 1, let's be real. And you might be thinking, well, what about Guy, her husband? He's not even in the book. I mean, he does technically show up at the very end, we'll get to that. But he's basically written off from the whole story with no good excuse. She does go around asking about Guy and where he is, and if he's dead, or if there's a famous actor out there with his name, and nobody seems to know who he is. And I can't remember if Andy mentions what happens to Guy, if he says that he's dead or just disappeared or what. I don't know. To be honest, I was so uninvested in this story because it was so boring that I feel like I did miss a lot of pertinent details, I guess. But I don't know. I really don't care because the story was just so uninteresting. There was no tension, there was no suspense, there was no horror in this horror book. The only thing that has really stayed with me from this book is how it's filled with this incestuous relationship between Andy and his mom. The fact that he kept flirting with her and kissing her and talking to her about sex, and that is gross. And I felt like that was such a lazy choice, in my opinion, to make this man represented as evil by making him be attracted to his mom. The story is about how Andy has now become this leader of this huge peace organization where he's wanting to unite the whole world. He's super famous, everybody loves him, and that means that everybody now loves Rosemary because she's his mother, so she's famous too. She reunites with her son, is proud of him that he turned away from the satanic cult and is now trying to promote peace and unity for the world. But the fact that Rosemary just believes him so easily is really annoying because it lends no character development to Rosemary. She's just painted as this really gullible, naive, stupid woman where she just believes everything she's told. She doesn't ask questions. She just goes along with everything. Even when her son is making advances on her, she just kind of lets it happen, and even at some points plays into it and like flirts back and kind of takes it as a compliment that he's attracted to her. I'm like, this is weird. I just hated the way she was written. It did not feel like the Rosemary from book 1. It felt like a totally different writer took this story and tried to make the sequel of it. It's almost unbelievable that Ira Levin himself wrote book 2, but he did. Now, granted, this was a sequel that was written 30 years after the original. And what that tells me, and a lot of other people out there if you Google it, is this felt very cash grabby. Also, it was written in 1997, the book takes place in 1999, and the millennium is a big topic in the book. So maybe he was just playing into the whole millennium hype and trying to make a horror around that. Okay, the whole plot point in the book is that Andy is gonna send out all these candles to every single person all over the world, and everybody's going to unite and light these candles at the same exact time on the millennium. and this is going to unite the world together in peace and harmony. But in reality, Satan's plan is that the candles are going to let out this poison gas and actually kill the human race. And it actually turns out that the guy Rosemary is dating is Satan in disguise. And the way that he tries to convince her of not going against his plan to destroy humanity is that he will grant her eternal life. And when he says this, I immediately think, oh, vampire. And it's funny that I thought that, because we'll get to that. So before I reveal the big ending and tell you why people hated this book, I have to say one thing I did think was clever is that the final chapter, instead of calling it chapter 18, it was called chapter 6 plus 6 plus 6. I thought that was pretty good. Okay, now on to the very last plot twist of the book. The big reason why everybody has rated this book so low and everybody hates it. It all turns out to be a dream. It turns out that Rosemary was reading Bram Stoker's Dracula before bed and has a nightmare. Or is it a prophecy? So she wakes up and it turns out the events of Son of Rosemary haven't happened. But not only that book, Rosemary's baby hasn't even happened. Her and Guy are still newlyweds. She gets a call from Hutch, her old friend, and he tells her about this apartment that will be really cheap and good for them to move into. The same apartment where she moves in book 1 and meets Minnie and Roman. Now, there's a theory, because in Son of Rosemary, there's an anagram we get, just like in book 1 where we get that anagram and it turns out to be all them witches. So in book 2, there is an anagram and it's roast mules. Now, it never gives the reveal of what that stands for, but I went to the internet and I went to Reddit and there's a roast mules theory. So people think that stands for somersault, and that the ending of the book is Rosemary being stuck in an eternal hell, doomed to repeat the whole story over and over again like a somersault. Now, I will say, the whole it's all a dream conclusion didn't really bother me. I'm not gonna lie. That wasn't the worst part of this book for me. My problem with the book, honestly, was just that it was uninteresting. I was just not invested. I was so bored. And then the whole time I was reading it, my face was just like, because of all the incestuous back and forth between Rosemary and Andy. By the time it turns out to all be a dream, I didn't even care. The lesson I learned from this experience is that if 5,492 people have given an average rating to a book that is less than 3 stars, I'm gonna listen and I'm not gonna read that book because it's probably going to be garbage. I will say, I don't regret that I read it though, because I was very curious, and I am happy because I've officially completed one of my goals for the year, which was to read a series. I kind of feel like it's cheating because it's a duology, but hey, I googled it and technically a duology is a series, so it counts. I'm just thankful that the book was short and it didn't waste too much of my time. All that being said, I'm happy that I was able to read this book and tell you about it so you don't have to waste your time. Now you know. If you were ever curious about book 2 of Rosemary's Baby, there it is. You know the whole thing. It doesn't matter because everything's a dream. First of all, I love that this book is narrated by the author. I always love a book narrated by the author. I feel like the author's voice lends such another type of weight into their own story. If I had this book physically, I feel like it would be heavily annotated because there are so many good quotes. I have my notebook here where I've been writing down all the quotes that I want to remember. I feel like what I can say about it is this is a book about really being able to check my own privilege. It really is highlighting so many things that honestly I've not wanted to think about, which is a big part of this book. It really calls people out for being able to look away and not wanting to face what's going on with the genocide that's happening in Palestine. And this is a hard reality. This is a really hard thing to face. I cannot imagine being in a place where these things are happening. People are killed as though to be killed is the only natural and rightful ordering of their existence. Like, that's crazy, but it's so real and so raw to hear him say that, because yes, when you're living in a privileged society, as I am, as most of us are in the United States, where we don't have, bombs dropping on us every single day, can't even imagine what it's like to be afraid in that way. Just the numbers, like the statistics he gives in this book of how many people have died. Innocent people, civilians, women, children. They were blowing up hospitals. It's just crazy to me how people truly lack empathy. There's another quote in the book where he talks about being foreign to the land that you're living in. Now, he says things like, I keep distance between who my daughter is and what she comes from because it'll be easier for her that way. Another one is, anything less than fluency is a sentence to a life of something lesser. It is this impulse to give your child a fighting chance of privilege by immersing them in the myriad languages of the privileged world that makes me who I am. Now, this is something that I can relate to because I don't speak any other language besides English. So when I was little, nobody wanted me to speak any other language besides English because they didn't want me to have an accent. And they wanted me to basically assimilate into the United States and be part of it as fluently as possible so that I would have a life of privilege. The author talks about when he was a kid, the other kids would make fun of him and ask him if he rode a camel to school. You know, I never had to deal with things like that. He writes, know your place. It's a frequent, nauseating political inheritance. Come to experience the world under the reign of someone who thinks you are subhuman, as undeserving of a future. One of the memories he talks about in the book is of a man getting into a fender bender with another man. And one of these men were Southeast Asian. The other one looks like a local man. And the local man decides to get out of his car, take off his sandal, and start beating the other man with his shoe, completely dehumanizing him or emasculating him. And that was just infuriating to me. And other people around watching were laughing at this, and my heart just broke instantly. I don't find things like that funny. I don't know how anybody could find things like that funny. And he says in the moment, you know, he was a kid and he did laugh at that situation, but it always stuck with him. The rage in one man's eyes and the fear in the other's. He violated the bounds of his assumed non-existence. They shouldn't make waves or make themselves known. For a life stunted by a particular kind of oppression, the driving force will never be towards something better, but always from something worse. It's like these people don't have a right to the same kind of treatment and respect because they are just, at least it's not as bad as where I came from. That's awful. I hate that that's what is accepted by the large majority. He talks about becoming a journalist and having to go through something called hazardous environment training, where they literally put a hood over his head, put a gun to his face, and put him in situations of things that he might experience being out in these war zone countries and having to deal with this kind of treatment as a journalist out there. I can't even imagine being in a situation like that. Reading this book just reminds me of how privileged I am to just be able to sit in my own house in peace, not worrying about bombs falling on my head. I don't have to worry about even a fraction of what these people are going through. Now, is there a lot going on here in the United States? Absolutely. And I like what he says here about protests and how some people just complain when there's protesting and blocking the traffic for them to get to work, and it's causing this inconvenience for them to live their daily lives because they don't want to see what's going on. They don't want to face it. They just want to live their lives and mind their own business, and they're upset when you put these things in their faces. I like what he writes here about how people argue against protesting. They say these protests only inconvenience people, and that inconveniencing people is not an effective way to change their minds. Never is this logic applied to the past, though. To the demonstrations that shut down bridges to call for an end to segregation, for example, because if applied to a moment already deemed righteous in hindsight, such an argument would be shown immediately for its spinelessness, but for now, it's fine. And then we go back to literally the title of this book. One day, everyone will have always been against this because it will have been the right thing to have done. But this is basically a call to action of, while living in the moment, what are you doing? What are we doing? This book is very raw and real and eye-opening. It's really sad. It's like a really hard wake-up call, you know? That's tough. This is a tough book. I have finished One Day Everyone Will Have Always Been Against This, and I'm definitely giving that book 5 stars. I feel like it was such a really great eye-opening experience. It gave an insight and a perspective that I've never read from before. I've never read from an Egyptian author before, so that was really cool. I like hearing books and narratives from different backgrounds, and that's something that I've been focusing on a lot more this year already, and also reading a lot more nonfiction. So I'm just having a great time reading a lot of more diverse voices this year, even to just start off. There was definitely a lot more quotes in that book that I would have been highlighting if I had the physical copy, but I did write a few more. So something that I did write was, every small act of resistance trains the muscle used to do it, in much the same way that turning one's eyes from the horror strengthens that particular muscle, readies it to ignore even greater horrors to come. I felt like that was so impactful, something that I really wanted to write down and remember, because oftentimes I would even think to myself, like, what's the point of this one protest, or what's the point of doing this one thing, or this one little act of resistance that seems so minuscule. He never calls anything out by name, but he always like alludes to something that you kind of know what he's talking about. Like, he'll mention in the book maybe choosing to not buy a drink from this one particular store just to make a small difference, and you think like maybe that one small difference really doesn't do anything, but if we all take those small steps together, that can in turn create a bigger change because we're all doing it. It's like that idea of, you think of like, oh, one drop of water, maybe not a big deal, but if we are all together, we can form an entire ocean. You know what I mean? And I like what he says, that having taken these small steps, a person might decide it was no great sacrifice and might be willing to sacrifice more, demand more. It just gives me another way to think about this. Like, the next time I'm deciding, should I buy this thing on Amazon because I'm gonna get it in one day, or can I sacrifice getting this thing in 1 or 2 days and just wait a little bit longer? Do I really need this thing right now? Or can I go to a mom and pop store to get it? Or can I order from the small business website, when in the long run, it means not supporting, billionaires who really don't give a shit about me? So it's definitely things I want to think about a lot more and try to make those changes in my own life. And it's not easy. Like, a lot of those things are not easy. I mean, I'm from a generation of instant gratification. I mean, we have the internet and things at our fingertips, and we want things now. And it's going to be hard to kind of move away from some of those things, and making that decision to really not support people that have terrible ideals, even if their products are something that I enjoy. And yeah, I'm not going to be perfect in all of the things that I'm trying to do, but I think it's good to just be more mindful of that at least, and try to make those changes. So yeah, I think for me, this book was very impactful. This was going to inspire hopefully a lot of change in my life, at least to be more mindful of a lot of things that maybe I was just not thinking about previously, or trying not to think about, and just for my own sense of comfort. But I'm going to try to make myself more uncomfortable, and by thinking of other people, and that's going to be my goal after reading this. And yeah, am I gonna be a perfect human being after this? No, probably not. It's gonna be a work in progress. This is definitely a book I would highly recommend everybody to read, just to get a different perspective on things, and to encourage a little bit more empathy towards other people and other people's situations. So overall, this vlog was really fun to do. I liked the books that I chose, even the one that I did not like. It's so crazy to me that the result of this vlog was a 1-star and a 5-star. The lowest average rating book ended up being worse than I expected it to be, and the highest rated average book ended up being even better than I was expecting. I don't know if I had said this earlier, but my guess was gonna be like a 2-star and a 4-star. I did not expect it to be a 1 and a 5. So yeah, that was very interesting. I think I enjoyed Son of Rosemary still because of how much I hated it. Like, I still don't feel like it was a complete waste of time, because I was so curious, and I feel really satisfied of having completed that series. I was glad I was able to at least put together a spoiler review in case you were ever curious, because sometimes we just want to know what's gonna happen. So this probably was perfect for somebody who was curious and didn't want to actually read the book for themselves. I liked this challenge, and I was glad that I was able to knock off a couple of books from my digital TBR. Now, have I added more books to my digital TBR since I started this video? Absolutely. I really need to go through and do a digital unhaul. I also need to do a physical unhaul, but that's a video for another day. See you next time.